Welcome everyone to another episode of Compressed FM, a podcast all about web development and design with a little bit of zest. In this episode, we're going to talk all about the power of community. So let's get into it.
Web development and design, who would have guessed? Well, we can do them both, even add a little zest. So turn up the volume, get ready for the best. Let's get it started in this episode of Compressed.
What's up, everyone? My name is James Quick, and I am a full-time technical content creator, which has been like 8 months now. It's still a little weird for me to say, but we are sponsored by Storyblock for this episode. Storyblock is one of my favorite headless CMS options. You get all the things that you would expect, really nice graphical user interface to input and manage all of your data. You get APIs and SDKs that you can query all that data and get it into your application. And one really cool feature is their live preview feature, where basically you can add a little bit to your code, connect your locally running project to Storyblock, and be able to not only visualize all of your components, but also be able to like click on them and edit them from within Storyblock based on like what actually is displayed on the site, which is really cool. So that live preview is really, really neat. Storyblock all the way around, really cool headless CMS option. Highly recommend people check it out at storyblock.com. And thank you for Storyblock for sponsoring. And welcome to our guest, JD. JD and I have been a few different conferences in person, gotten to hang out a couple times this past year, had a blast, and excited to have you on to talk about the power of community. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell people a little bit about your background?
No, James, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I like I said, my name is JD Hillen. I'm a software engineer at a company called Garmin, which they specialize in GPS and wearables, and but it's not just that. They have all different kinds of stuff. They most recently a friend of mine really got into fishing, and they have a whole bunch of really cool fishing tech that it's basically like just find a fish underwater and just cast your rod and pull it up. Like it's like a video game. It's unbelievable cool.
Mm-hmm.
They also have a lot of aerospace technology, airplanes, helicopters, things like that. But I'm primarily a Vue.js developer. It's a framework that I enjoy working in, and that the team that I'm on, we're basically rebuilding a monolith repo, and peeling off sections of it and building out new Vue.js apps for device registration, account management, orders portal, things like that. So basically, if you buy a device from Garmin and register it on their website, which is kind of required, you interact with the software that I write. So it's kind of a cool thing. We have millions of users all over the world. They're an international, and they're less than 2 miles away from my house. So I'm seriously considering buying a golf cart and just driving a golf cart to work every day. So that's my new goal. But I don't know if the wife's gonna approve that.
I approve it. Just let her know that it's been already
right.
approved by me. I think that's all it takes.
Yep, James Quick said it's cool, so let's do it.
And it's recorded on stream too. Just out of curiosity, like migrating that big monolith, like what's the backend for that? So you're using Vue on the front end. What's the backend stuff look like?
It's all in Express.
Okay, cool.
Express and Node. It was originally done in, I believe, Backbone. And I try not to touch the monolith repo because like I see it as like a house of cards that I do one little thing and the whole thing collapses. So I primarily just peel off sections and work on those.
Nice. That's cool. I always like to hear a little bit about, like, even if it's not the focus of the conversation, like what are the technologies and stuff people use on a regular basis. And especially like Node Express, like it's one of the things that I think people learn a lot early on, like as they're learning web development now. It's an easy transition because of doing JavaScript on the front end. Now you can do it on the back end, but I still think it's not near as popular in the ecosystem as a whole for back end, like in bigger production applications, really just because it's newer. Like there's so much .NET, there's so much Java, there's so much of that stuff. So it's cool to hear real world examples of people actually using Node Express.
Well, and I live in Kansas City. on the Kansas side, not the Missouri side. There's a whole to do about that. But anyway, Kansas City is a really big .NET town. We have Cerner, which actually just got bought out by Oracle. They primarily do everything in .NET. There's a lot of .NET development shops here in town. A lot of small startups that use .NET. So there's a lot of bodies out here in Kansas City that want to do .NET stuff, and Garmin's one of those companies that they are looking to the future. They are looking for new technology. They are looking for better ways of doing things and not just doing the same old, which is great because I love using the latest and greatest tech stuff. I mean, I keep my package JSON files up to date all the time. I just like working with new stuff. Now Vue isn't necessarily new, but it's the framework that I enjoy working in. So,
what's about as new?
We try. No, we try to be on the cusp of the new technology stuff. So,
well, and I was gonna say, Vue is about as new as it gets. Like, I mean, with the exception of going to something like much newer, or even something like SvelteKit, like React, Angular, Vue are still the most reasonable new options for doing front end. And then obviously people do like
absolutely
a handful of things more on top of that. But anyway, like the topic today is the power of community. And I was wondering, like, super open-ended question, so you can take this however you want. Like, what does community mean for you? Like, why is that a topic that you're particularly interested in?
Well, it kind of started at the Vue conference in 2018. It was in Tampa, Florida, and I got to go to the conference. My company, my previous company that I worked for, paid for it, and I saw a talk by a guy named Ben Hong, who's on the Vue core team now. He works at Netlify, super nice guy, but he had a presentation about building Vue community and starting a meetup group and just trying to contribute back to everybody in the community. And for some reason, it really resonated with me. I was like, you know what, I could do more. I could not just show up at these things. I need to participate. And so as soon as I got home, I was like, all right, I'm going to start a Vue user group here in Kansas City. Went to meetup.com, searched for Vue Kansas City, and it turned out there already was a community called Vue KC here in town, but they hadn't met in probably a year and a half, something like that. So I just contacted the organizers and were like, hey, I want to take this over. I want to do something with this and try to build a group of like-minded individuals that are all into Vue. So after about 2 months of emailing back and forth with these guys, they finally granted me admin access, and we started rolling. Our first couple groups were really small. I mean, I'm talking like 5 or 6 people. We didn't have any sponsors. We had no food. We had no drinks. It was just, people showing up there because they liked, just because it was there and they wanted to meet other people in the community. So that lasted, and it went pretty well all the way up until COVID. And then obviously COVID, put a kibosh on all of that. I was going through a job change at the time. And I was also doing a lot of personal stuff. So I just didn't have time to run a community virtually during the pandemic. So I just kind of let it slide. But then I caught that like speaker bug, you know what I mean? I had been presenting at these meetup groups, and I'm like, you know what, I could take it to another level. I want to present at a conference. And when I left the Vue conference in 2019, I set a goal for myself. I was like, I want to present at the Vue conference. Nice. And then, fast forward to late 2022, I got the acceptance that I was going to present at the Vue conference. So I was like, this is amazing. And I've met so many really cool people. I mean, you included, Amy. I mean, just follow me on Twitter, and like all the people that I follow are all industry people that I've met at conferences and through talks and stuff. And it's really rewarding to just be a part of that. You don't have to be the lead. You don't have to be, the main organizer of any of that stuff. Like, you just got to show up and be present. And that's something that has really benefited me over the last couple of years. Like, COVID was really tough. I'm a very social person. I love being out with my friends. I love being in the office with my coworkers. I thrive off of that personal connection that I get with people. And throughout COVID, obviously I wasn't getting that. Now, don't tell my wife that. I'm very connected with her, but I really wanted to be part of a group of like-minded individuals that just want to learn. And it's not necessarily strictly about Vue. That's kind of the guideline, but
Right.
we've had presentations on failure. We've had presentations on, on just testing. It wasn't even Vue specific, just, writing backend tests. We've had presentations on building your own APIs, but all kind of in that Vue centric world. And it's just been super rewarding. And that's why I keep doing it. And then I started going to these conferences. I ended up presenting at 8 different conferences last year. Ooh, dog. We'll edit him out. Don't worry. No. So I presented at 8 different conferences, and really when I started, I had one talk that was all about animating Vue with GSAP, and GSAP is a GreenSock animation platform. And I just shotgunned my talk to anybody that had an open CFP. I don't have a huge Twitter following. I don't have a popular YouTube channel. I'm not an influencer, but I have a story, and I want to tell that story to as many people that will listen. And luckily, in all of these conferences that I applied to, I got into almost all of them. So unfortunately, I'm not a sponsored person. I don't work in DevRel. I don't have a company backing me. So I paid for all these conferences myself. I don't suggest doing that. It's a lot of money, but I view spending money on conferences and travel and to be in these communities, I view that as more important than what the money actually costs itself. Because I've learned so much over the last few years. To kind of preface this, I started out in design and then moved over to development. So I actually missed a lot of those formal development processes and those college classes that, this is how you code. I'm very self-taught, but I've met a lot of people that are very similar, that work at these giant tech companies, that work at Google, that work for Facebook, that are all self-taught. So it just kind of, replays that in my mind, where I'm like, okay, I am doing the right thing. I'm going down the right path that I set out for myself. And a lot of these conferences and these talks just kind of reaffirm what I'm doing with my life. And I think that's more important than any classroom that you could be in or any course that you ever take. I mean, it's great to learn those new things, but if you're doubting yourself, then you have a bigger problem anyway. So that's part of the reason why I do it. That's the reason why I'm involved in the community. And I'm not a library maintainer or anything.
You looking at the comment, or you laughing at dog? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I'm laughing at the dog. He wants to chime in. Maybe he's part of a community that we should learn about.
She's huge into the doggy programming community. It's a new thing.
Perfect.
There's one thing that stood out to me was the idea of paying for your travel, and you said you wouldn't recommend. There's also like there's obviously like it depends for people, but I'll give an example, a controversial one maybe. We
Okay.
were both at Modern Front Ends in London in November, which
Yeah.
very mixed emotions and things going on. But here was kind of one of my insights into that. Looking at all of the people that I knew that were going to be there, that I would have like face to face time with, that I would get to hang out with, that I would get to learn from, to like
Yep.
I hate saying networking, because networking for me is like literally just showing up and being there, like specifically to community events. Like that's networking. It's not going out and doing this cold sell of trying to like get something out of somebody. It's just showing up authentically. And for me, I paid for all of that trip out of pocket. Again, like deeper details, if people have questions, we can talk about that later. But paid for that
Yep. Me
entire trip
too.
out of pocket. Yeah. And I almost expected it from the very beginning, or I was going to be paying for most of it from the very beginning. And I told myself, like, regardless of what happens, it was going to be worth it from an investment in myself from a networking perspective. So it was worth $3,000 or however much total it was for me to go to London just to be there with you and everybody else, because of the people that were there. So it was 100% worth it. For me, Todd's got similar things of like, it was kind of a shit show, but he enjoyed the time that we had. We get to record a podcast with Todd together. Anyway, so like all that's relative. Like $3,000 to a lot of people is absolutely a lot of money. And it was for me too, but it was worth the investment for me. So I think like as much as you can, if you can get work to pay for it, or you find speaking opportunities where you get paid to travel and at least not come out of pocket, those are ideal. But also, like if you have the money, like it can certainly be worth it just to go and attend and be around the people that are at a given conference.
Absolutely. And you know, every conference is different. I've, like I said, I've only recently been getting into the public speaking space and doing some of these conferences. But they're, you know, some are better than others, in terms of content, in terms of
Mhm.
attendance, in terms of, you know, a multitude of factors. But I've been very fortunate that the good have always outweighed the bad,
Yeah.
and the bad is very minimal. So I don't mind putting up the money to go to London and hang out with you and go see Big Ben and all those. Like, I mean, we spent the whole day together and we were just hanging
Mhm.
out, and I had never met you. I
Yep.
stalked you on Twitter for a while, and
Well,
I was a big.
we did meet once, right, at that conference in Texas, or not Texas,
That's
and
right. In Wisconsin. In Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. We had met, yeah, which was that
Right.
was the first time. So we had like known each other a little bit, but still mostly online, to your point.
Right.
Yeah.
It was a 10-minute conversation in passing. I mean, it wasn't like
Mhm.
we, you know, became instant friends or anything, but like I said, all these conferences have amazing people at them, and they all have a story. I'm a big story guy. I
Mhm.
worked in advertising for about 15 years,
Yeah.
and they always preach that. What's the story? What's the story
Mhm.
behind the project you're doing, or the ad, or the commercial, or whatever you're creating? They always preach the story. And I was lucky enough that I had a unique take on what I was presenting. And like I said, I was presenting on the GreenSock animation
Mhm.
platform. I applied to all these conferences. I got into that Modern Front Ends Live, and it was in London. I talked to my wife, and I was like, "Look, this might be a cool opportunity, and I've never been to London, so I think I want to go." And so, you know, we talked about it, got the money together, you know, made travel arrangements and everything, and then all of a sudden, I got a DM on Twitter from a girl named Cassie, who's the DevRel person for GSAP.
Mhm.
She's got a ton of followers. She makes awesome content, and if she's watching, shout out to you. She's awesome. But she messaged me and she was supposed to present at that conference as well. But you know, if anybody knows the story, the conference went downhill really quick, and Twitter became a flame over the mishandling of the conference, and she ended up dropping out of the conference about a week before. And then she messaged me again. She's like, you know, since you're presenting on GSAP, I was wondering if I could take you out to dinner. And I'm like, yeah, that would be amazing. And so we planned it, and she took a train for an hour up to London just to come meet me and have amazing Indian food and just hang out and talk about animation, and she made my trip because I've been working in this platform for so long, and that was a connection that was made completely over Twitter. And it ends up that we have a lot in common. You know, we both are into animation. We're both into music, you know, all these conferences and presenting and just working in tech. Like we really hit it off. And I've had so many interactions like that at all the conferences that I've been to. And it's all about getting out of your hotel room and just making yourself vulnerable and introducing yourself to people. You know, Clark from that conference is the exact same way. Back in 2018, he was doing a YouTube series called Ask That, where it was open to anybody. You just sign up for a slot, and it's similar to this. It's just a podcast. You just hop on there, talk about whatever you're working on. And out of the blue, I signed up for it. We ended up talking for about an hour and a half, and you know, again, we had a real connection. You know, he's a super nice guy. I really am supportive of the community that he's trying to build with that conference. And I just want to be a part of it. I just want to help out in any way I can. And that led to a couple of years later being able to present at that conference, Wisconsin, and that conference in Austin, Texas, where you did your keynote, which was amazing. But it's just all these little webs of things just coming together and building a community that is it's really natural and interesting to me. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, well, that's all networking. Again, like I almost hate the word networking, but all of that is, and I think from a company perspective, from Green Sock, is that right? I always want to say like Green Sap, but Green Sock is right. But it's Green Sock GSAP. And then GSAP. Yeah. So just the y'all being able to have dinner, like there was no expectations on either end. It was just like, let's get together and hang out and have a conversation. Like that goes such a long way, because like selfishly from her perspective, and it not necessarily saying this was her intent, but like what they get out of it is like, anytime you have a personal connection to a company, you're going to be more likely to like talk about that company or that product, right? Like that's kind of the epitome of DevRel, is like we go out and build these relationships, not because we want to force you to use our product, but like that connection means you have someone that you can trust at a company. If you have questions, or if you like, I don't know, if you're choosing between two products, you're going to choose the one that you have the most connections to, right? Like that same thing with everything else that we do. We want to work with the people that we enjoy working with.
And also, you never know where those connections are going to take you. Working in advertising for so long, it's all about connections. It's all about personal relationships with your coworkers, your creative directors, your designers, your editors, your copywriters, all those people. And honestly, the last, I want to say 4 jobs that I've had over the last 15 years have been because I met someone at a happy hour, or, you know, I used to work with this person and they're great, so why not try to get involved with what they're doing now? You know, I've got a buddy of mine right now that I worked at a brewery for a while at Boulevard Brewing Company in Kansas City, where my friend Brent was the creative director. Well, he ended up leaving and went to another ad agency, but he started home brewing with a friend of his. And he had this wild idea of just, I want to build a brewery. I want to build my own brewery. So he started down that path about 4.5 years ago. And it's just now starting to come to fruition, where they have a space, they have the funding, they have, you know, everything backing. It's called Friction Brewing Company. If you're ever in Kansas City, hit up Friction Brewing Company. But he hit me up out of the blue because I worked with him and he knew that I did web stuff. He's like, hey, we need a website. We need a web presence. We need to start doing some stuff. So he brought me into that, and I'm just doing it because it's fun. and I get to work with a former coworker again, and I get to work on a cool project again. But you never know where these connections are going to take you. Like Taylor Dessen from yeah, he preaches this all the time. And that's another guy that I just started following on Twitter. I'm like, I like this guy's content. I like what he has to say. And I just started following him, met him a couple times in person. Super nice guy, but he preaches this in his talks about, opening up and connecting with people, because you never know where it's going to take you.
Yep. Yeah, it really is wild. I've shared this story several times, but when I got let go from my role back in June or July, like I posted on Twitter, like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing next, but if you're hiring for DevRel or leadership in DevRel or whatever, let me know. Like 100 messages overnight, which
Right.
I'm in a very fortunate position for that to be the case, because like right now there's layoffs happening all the time, and so many people are having to figure out what's next. And there's a great quote from Taylor that I think I referenced then, is like your network, you don't build your network when you need it. You build your network because you will need it someday. So by the time you actually need it, you have that network to lean on.
Absolutely.
There was a good question in the chat about imposter syndrome, and I actually sent out my newsletter this morning and I tweeted about something similar recently. Of basically, if you're learning something new, like just expect this thing to be a journey, and just expect like there to be struggles, expect to make mistakes, all these things. So we talked a little bit about the fireplace thing behind me. All the DIY stuff that I do is completely off YouTube. Like I don't have a background in this stuff. I just I look up YouTube videos and I go and build stuff, and I mess it up and I have to buy more stuff to fix it, or more equipment because I've completely botched it. But that's part of the learning journey, and it's just expected. And I'm wondering, is there any sort of tie-in, like for you, of like maybe fighting imposter syndrome with being in the community? Have you felt like more empowered, more inspired, more confident in yourself just from being around others and kind of learning from them?
Absolutely. There, no one ever knows everything. Okay. Everybody's got a unique take on something. Like, for example, I knew nothing about accessibility, absolutely nothing, up until about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And I see Todd's in the chat.
Todd's here. Yeah.
I'm going to shout out Todd and Homer and Krista Mars. I call them the three wise men of accessibility. And I've learned so much from those guys just by attending their talks and listening to them, be like, oh, this is a thing that needs to be important. So now anytime that I'm working on a project, accessibility is in the forefront of what I'm doing, just because they told me about it. And I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't attended their talks. But talking about imposter syndrome, anytime I go into a conference or a new job or anything like that, I always feel like I don't belong there for some reason. Whether it's
probably
my background,
yeah,
whether it's my background or the jobs I've had or the framework I choose to work in, you feel a little bit like an outsider. But that goes away real quick when you start introducing yourself to people and, just telling stories and grabbing dinner and drinks and, just hanging out. You realize that, everybody has a thing that they're not like 100% confident in, for me, it was, sometimes it was my JavaScript skills. Sometimes it was my design skills. But you talk to other people and you find out that, everybody is just kind of faking it till they make it anyway. Failure is 100% going to happen to you. Every single person, you're gonna fail. It's how you turn that around and turn that into a win and turn that into a success. You could try to build a feature on a web application 3, 4, 5 different times and it fails every time. But then that 6th time, boom, there it is. And it works perfectly. All your tests pass, your PR passes, then you're good to go. And there was a piece of advice that I don't remember who said it. I think it was Simon Sinek, the dude from LinkedIn. You always see his stuff. But he's a writer and a speaker. And he said that if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to be in a different room.
Yeah.
And that really resonated with me. that I've gotten to that position where I felt like I was the smartest person in the room, and I'm like, you know what, I needed to change it up. I need to, either get a new job or step it up in a leadership role, or do something more. And that really correlates with my path of being a presenter and going to these conferences and things. Like, I always feel like I could be doing more. And maybe that's my personality, maybe that's something else, but I always feel like there's something to learn in tech. There's always a new framework, there's always new technology. Chat GPT, that's the thing right now. Everybody's got to have Chat GPT, which their website is built in Vue and Nuxt, right? By the way.
So you heard it here first.
Yeah.
JD says Vue is by far the best framework. Just saying.
Just my opinion. I'm not going to hound you about it. But anyway, there's always something new to learn, and that's the thing that I love about tech is that there is always something. It's not a stagnant field,
Mm-hmm. I think also contributes to the imposter syndrome, because people, especially early on, feel this like overwhelmingness, totally understandably, that there's always this new thing. So it's like it's exciting for people to always have something new to learn and to experiment with and stuff, but it's also overwhelming. And I think a lot of like that particular instance of imposter syndrome, a lot of overcoming that is just being more mature in your development career, not like your personality, but just being more experienced enough to know when to say, I don't need to know that thing, or to say like,
right,
I don't know that thing and I'm totally cool with it, versus the people early on are like, oh my God, I don't know that thing and I feel like I should. Once you get more comfortable in age and experience with development, it's just easier, I think, for me to say like, I don't know. And like, I don't need to learn that thing right now.
Right. Like, have you actually looked at a job description requirements on LinkedIn, like, at all recently?
I haven't, but
they're insane. They're insane. Like, I saw one the other day for it was a local financial firm here in Kansas City, and they were hiring a senior level developer. And I think I counted 6 different languages that you had to know.
6 different languages?
What? Not 6 different JavaScript things. I'm talking languages. They wanted .NET, they wanted PHP, they wanted Node, they wanted React. It was unbelievable.
Because that's silly.
And not only that, but their pay, they posted the pay, and it was only like $60,000 a year. So like if you're aiming for somebody at that level, you better be able to fork over the money to pay them, because like they're going to go to Google or Microsoft or some bigger company where they're like, okay, you don't need to know 6 different languages, you just need to know this one and do awesome work. So I actually learned a lot from Taylor about that in one of his sessions, where he was like, if they were actually hiring these people, they'd never get them, because they're casting such a wide net that you're not going to get somebody with every single one of those skill sets. So, don't feel bad if you don't know something. Raise your hand. Go to a session at a conference of something that is completely different from what you think, because you never know what you're going to learn or pick up along the way.
Yep. Todd commented in the chat, 33 years of Vue experience for a middle-level dev and 51 years of Perl experience for $43K a year.
Yeah, I think I've seen that one before.
Yeah, it's just it's silly, and I think so much of it. This is why I have so much respect for Taylor Desson. We've talked about him a few times as a recruiter, is because he actually spends time in the developer communities. And I think a big part of the problem is just companies like it's people, unfortunately, that aren't developers writing job descriptions and deciding on what they think are requirements. And it just like you've probably seen the memes too of people like when React was 5 years old looking for 8 years of experience with React or something. It's just silly. Like it's just people being out of touch with like what the reality is. But it is like, it can be overwhelming to look at those. The things that we talk about a lot for people that get intimidated by job requirements is like, that one's like the one you mentioned is like way excessive. But typically, like if you meet 50% of the quote unquote requirements in a job description, go ahead and apply, because they're not going to find the person that does all of those things and does all those well. And the reality is, like, as a developer, you're potentially paying or looking for like experience, like that absolutely is a big part of what you're looking for. But also, you're just looking for a developer that has the ability to learn, because all of us
Yep.
learn new things every day. And if you learn one framework, you at least have a head start on learning another if you understand like conceptually what they're doing for you and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, like as ridiculous as some of those are, like don't let an overwhelming amount of stuff in a job description keep you from applying if you meet like 30, 40, 50% or whatever, because the reality is they're just not going to find somebody that does all of those things.
Absolutely. I mean, I've also said that there is no perfect job. I've had a perfect job and it didn't work out. The grass is not always greener. So if you have a job that you are happy with, I say happy with by over 60% of your day or your time is
You're enjoying.
positive, then you're in a good situation. Okay. There is always going to be something that you don't like doing in a job description or a position that you hold. But if you are looking for something new and you are looking for a change, apply to those jobs. What's the worst they can say? No. Okay, I'll go to the next one. I mean, there's so many jobs in tech, and I do feel really bad for the people that have been laid off recently. Especially these people that have been at a company 8-9 years, and they're just getting laid off. But there are other jobs out there. There's always another path.
Yeah, it's a weird mix of how many layoffs there are versus how many job postings there are. Also, like in a great way, I've seen several of my friends like get let go and then find something within a week or 2 weeks, which is like so incredible. So there are still lots of opportunities out there. But I love
that all.
Go ahead, you're good.
No, that all goes back to the connections that you make.
Yes.
You never know when you're going to need
the full circle. Absolutely. Yeah.
There you go.
You got it. Keep going.
See, we're on the same page. We got
That's
it.
Right.
We got it.
Yeah. That's exactly where I was going to go. And I've seen that pay off for other people as well. Like I mentioned kind of my example of having lots of DMs with people of like, hey, we're looking for blah, 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 or whatever. But that's happened for a bunch of other people that I see too. And I think like, that's why I'm such a big fan of content. I'm not saying everybody should be a full-time content creator. I'm not saying everybody should like take it as seriously as I do, but content is one of these like, gosh, how do I phrase it? Like a verification for skill sets and knowledge. Like, for example, like you submit a resume, right? And people have like, I'm a good communicator and I know this language or whatever, like whatever those things are. They're literally just words on a resume. Content to me is like, it's one of those reinforcers is not quite the right word I'm looking for, but it's one of those like validators of like, hey, if you want to know if I know how to speak, like if I can communicate clearly, go watch one of 500 videos. If you want to know if I understand JavaScript, go watch one of 500 videos. If you want to know if I know X, Y, and Z, go read one of my blog posts. Like those are the things that I think give some validation to who you say you are and what your skill sets are. But then also, like, if you start looking at SEO value and stuff and like building a brand, again, not necessarily to go and do content full time, but just building a brand and reputation and trust by creating good content, that sort of stuff like pays dividends over and over and over again. It has in my career. I've seen it like played out in other people's careers over and over again. And I think that is like a huge part of kind of starting that safety net of network, of exposure and network and brand. So like when you need it, you've got it there that you can lean on.
Right. Well, I had a manager that he gave me a really great piece of advice, and it was just show your math. Okay. Just show your math. Whatever you wanted to do, whatever, like, let's say you're working on a project. You're like, oh, well, I want to use X framework. It's like, why? Why do you want to use that? It was like, well, because I want to learn it or whatever. But you have to be able to show your math in proving why that framework is the best choice for whatever you're doing. Right.
I like that.
It's also an experience to learn something new on the job, which should be, everybody should be learning on the job, period. There's there's nobody on one single team that just knows absolutely everything, because if they do, that person is a liability. Because if that person leaves, that means the entire team doesn't know what they're doing anymore. So, a big thing at Garmin is sharing what you know and doing presentations. We have a devs chat that we do twice a week, where all we do is talk about new stuff and things we want to do to make our projects better. So everybody's kind of working toward the same goal.
Yep. Yeah, I got a couple of comments on like the interesting tricky market right now, which is 100% true. But the network effect could be so powerful. Yeah, you just never know.
Yeah.
Not to mention it's fun. I have so many Twitter / Discord, etc. friends that I've gotten to like meet some in person, but not all of them. There's still so many people that I would love to meet in person.
Yeah.
But
yeah, absolutely. And when I first started, I've always had a Twitter account. I had one like right during the beta when they first announced it. And after using it for about a year, I was like, I don't see the point in this anymore. I'm done. So I unfollowed literally everyone that I had, because it was a lot of friends and that were cross posting like literally the exact same thing on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Yeah. Like I don't need to see all these pictures of your kids who I've never met. You know what I mean? Up until COVID. And then I finally figured out that like, oh, tech Twitter is like a thing. So maybe I should participate in it. And I just started following people in the Vue community and the JavaScript community. I follow people with a bunch of different backgrounds. And it honestly, it feels like stalking a little bit. Like I know, for example, like when I came up to you when we were in Wisconsin, I was like, okay, I've watched this guy's YouTube channels. I've followed him on Twitter, but I'm some random dude who has no reason to be talking to this guy. I just want to introduce myself. And as soon as I said my name, you were like, oh yeah. Yeah. So like just like trying to put those personal connections together. So now like on Twitter, the only people I follow on Twitter are tech industry people. Yep. I don't follow any friends. I don't follow my mom. I don't like none of that stuff. Like Twitter for me is specifically used for tech. And I've learned a lot. And it's coming from all different backgrounds. It's coming from DevRel people. It's coming from, library maintainers, engineers, content creators such as yourself. I mean, it's a great resource, but it's also one of those resources that you have to participate in. Oh, poor doggy. No, it's one of those resources that you have to participate in order to get something out of it. Like if you just quietly follow a bunch of people to get information, like, yeah, you're getting the information, but you're not participating in the conversation. But I also have kind of strict rules about, just posting random things or whatever random thought goes through my brain of like, oh, I'll just post about this. I try to make it relatable, but at the same time, I'm what I consider myself as a fake DevRel. That I'm not backed by any company. I don't have software that I'm writing for, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's definitely needed in the community, but at the same time, I had a story and I just wanted to see where it went. I don't really have any goals for any of this kind of communication stuff, for podcasting or speaking or any of that. If you go into tech thinking that you're going to be like some big influencer or something, you're going to fail. Like you can't predict where this is going to go.
I never would have told you that I would be a full-time content creator. Never would have even thought that was a possibility until the last 2 years was when I started to think about it. After years of creating content, again, not having the goal of doing anything like what I'm doing now. Yeah, you never know.
Right. See, and this all started when like I think it was my second conference that I presented at, which was about a year and a half ago. I had 5 people in the room, 5
Mhm.
people out of a conference of like 1,500.
Yep.
And my initial thought was, this sucks.
Yep.
Like, I came all the way here to present in front of no one. And why am I here? Like, you instantly start doubting yourself and feeling bad. But I also played in a band from the time I was 16 till I was about 26. And we used to travel all over Kansas
To do
to
the
these
same thing.
podunk these
Yeah.
podunk bars, playing in front of other bands and their girlfriends,
Yep.
and making no money. But I was with my 3 best friends, and we were having the time of our life. I
Yep.
mean, we were going out partying, we were playing music, we were really passionate about it. But doing that kind of set me up and prepared me for the speaking stuff, because, like, obviously I'm not going to get a keynote right off the bat, but at the same time, if I impact one singular person, then I'm done. My job is done. And every single presentation I've done, I've had at least one person come up to me and tell me it was either great, or they learned something, or you wanting to know more information and talk to me about it. So we go out in the hallway, we do the hallway track, and we talk shop. And after that, I'm like, okay, I am making a difference. I am
Yep.
doing something important, but it's a varying scale. It shifts with
It is.
everything.
It does. It's a hard thing to build up. Like, you don't,
Yeah.
the speaking. I mean, I've been speaking since 2013. That's been part of my job professionally for 7 out of the 10 years that I've worked, or however long.
Yeah.
And so at this point, like, I'm looking to make a next transition for myself too. I did the keynote at that conference in Texas, and I'm
Yep.
looking to do specifically more of that type of thing. But I've done my fair share of talks with a handful of people, 10 people, whatever. And it is defeating to prepare, to travel, to do all these things. But I
Yeah.
love the positive attitude toward that. And I have to check myself sometimes too, of I still get to do something that not a lot of people get to do, regardless of how big the audience is, and to be able to teach people and interact with the
Right.
community in that way is always a special thing.
Right. And that all going back to, you got to have a story. You got to have a
Yep.
reason for why you're there and why you're talking about what you're talking. Because anything less than that, I can just Google. I can pull up Stack Overflow and figure out how to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
It's the stories and or the personal connections that people have during their presentation. That's what really drives me. And that's what I want to get out of conferences is and the community really, is just to feel like I'm at a certain point in my career where I can teach this stuff. It may not be perfect, but at least I know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
So that's really the ultimate goal.
And the interesting thing, this is, well, I'll kind of wrap it up soon, but interesting thing about that is, like, you don't have to be an expert to give a talk either. Like, you just have to know enough. You have to know more than your target audience about a thing. And the example of my career is I started in DevRel, or developer evangelism, at Microsoft at the age of 22. I was giving talks to people that had been writing code longer than I had been alive, but they hadn't done the thing that I had done, or that I was there to show them. So to your point, like, everybody has something to offer, and you kind of have to figure out what that is about yourself, and figure out who the audience is, and set expectations appropriately.
Right.
One thing I wanted to call out, a comment from Mike in the chat, said, for what it's worth, going back to like the tough times of layoffs and that sort of stuff, and volatility in the industry, especially now, I think there's an ethical requirement for us privileged white dudes to go out of our way to pay it forward for our peers from underrepresented groups. Like, obviously now things are more difficult with layoffs and stuff, but I think that's also it's something I think about, just in terms of like my time and stuff, of like, how do I give back time, and maybe advice, or like conversations, or whatever it is, to people that don't, I don't know if I'd say like have it as easy as we do, but there's certainly, I think the thing that I go back to is, like, I see white guys all the time, so there's never been a doubt in my mind that, like, I'm capable of doing X, Y, and Z. It's not the same for other people, especially underrepresented groups. So the visibility and the time, I think, to help people out, especially now, but especially for those kind of groups, is a great call out. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out. I think empathy in software development is a relatively new thing. Whether it's accessibility or it's underrepresented groups or whatever marginalized people that are there, like having empathy in the software community is something that is relatively new, and it's very important, and everybody should have a seat at the table. And I definitely agree with you that for a large majority of coders, it is just basic white guys. It is. But that's not, but every time you say that, there's always one person on the exact opposite end of that spectrum that's like, no, it's not. So, those overgeneralizations, I think, are thrown around a lot in the tech community. And I'm trying really hard not to do that. Because everybody has a story, everybody gets something out of software, and it should be, a community where everybody feels welcome, that everybody has a seat at the table and has a voice. And I really applaud a lot of those conferences that are starting to pick up on that empathetic feeling of software development and build that into a program and actually create a space for people to share their thing, their topics or ideas or whatever it is. I think that's a really, really cool progressive movement in the software industry. And I really want to see it continue.
Yeah. I think you had the quote of the year with empathy and software development as a relatively new thing. And like, obviously Twitter as a whole right now is kind of hit or miss, but also tech Twitter, I think like there's definitely ups and downs in tech Twitter, just like anything else. But as a whole, what I see is a lot of what you're saying, of people, Todd calling me out when I don't include alt on my images and stuff on Twitter.
Oh, Demar's is the worst.
Yeah, him and Demar's both. Like it's pretty ingrained in me now. Like I might miss one every once in a while, but I get them most of the time. And it's people like that, I think, that are able to have the conversation, but not belittle people and not like push them too far the other way to where they don't want to listen and be a part of it. So I like tech Twitter, right. I think has had a significant impact on my career, and it's my go-to resource for tech related stuff. To your point, like I use Instagram and it's more, I don't use it that much, but like more personal stuff. Like Twitter is specifically like almost professional for me, just in the sense of like my professionalism is the tech community, and that's what I use it for.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I compartmentalize all my social media. Like Facebook is like family and friends, like close friends, really just people from high school from 20 years ago that I don't see. Instagram is random drunk people doing stupid things and guitar makers, because I'm a big guitar player. And then Instagram is, or not Instagram, Twitter is all tech people. And then LinkedIn is all the recruiters that want to hire me.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I really think that this whole empathetic tech world that we live in now, I think it's a really positive push. Because if I'm standing up there at a conference talking, I have my perspective, I'm telling my story, but that may not resonate or involve other people because they don't have the same background and the same job changes or life experience that I have. So everybody has a story to tell. And I encourage people to, even if you are afraid of public speaking or making content or anything, it doesn't matter. Just put it out. You never know who it's going to impact. You never know who's going to read that tweet and be like, that makes total sense. Or, it's just going to click for somebody. And I think the more that we do that the more developers share, create YouTube channels or podcasts, or, even just posts on Twitter that have a block of code in it. You never know who you're going to impact.
Yep.
That's like my wife's a teacher and has been for the last 18 years. And it's always amazing to me whenever we're out to dinner or, up at Top Golf, like just hanging out or, doing something fun on a date night. There's always a kid that's usually like 18, 19, 20 years old that comes up to my wife and was like, "You were my favorite teacher in high school."
Really? Yeah.
And
Love
yeah,
that.
it happens. It happens all the time.
Mhm.
And, she'll come home from a day's work and be defeated by the system, or, something didn't go her way. And then that weekend,
So get one of those. Yeah.
random individual will tell her that she was her favorite teacher and she really impacted her life, and it completely changes your perspective.
Yep.
So like I said, you never know who you're going to impact by just putting your thoughts out there.
Yep. I love that. I think that's a good one to end on, or at least to move into our last section, which is picks and plugs section. So pick is
Sure.
something we bought, read, used, listened to, watched, whatever, recently. And then a pick is anything or a plug is anything we want to plug for ourselves or a community or anything like that.
Okay.
Do you want to do your pick and plug?
Sure. So I have been slowly transitioning all of my computer equipment to Bluetooth. And actually I've been setting up kind of a streaming platform, I guess, or a streaming workstation.
Yeah.
Because I have an idea for some content, but I didn't have the technology to use it. And so the latest thing that I bought were these lights that I have, and I probably don't have them adjusted. I look a little washed out and a little white. So I still got to play with them. I've only had them for like a week and a half, so I haven't really played with them a lot, but they're the Elgato Keylight Airs. I didn't go with the full ones just because they were a little more expensive, and I got them half price on eBay. So, they were, and so far they've been a really nice addition to my setup. And my coworkers even tell me that I look amazing on Microsoft Teams. So
that's huge.
That's my pick. As for a plug, I'm going to shout out two conferences. One is KCDC. So if you've never heard of KCDC, KCDC is the Kansas City Developers Conference. It's going to be this summer, June 22nd and 23rd. It's in Kansas City, Missouri, which is right downtown. It's an amazing event. It's a large event. Last year, I think they had like somewhere between 1,700 and 2,000 people. Pre-COVID numbers were around 3,000. So, I mean, post-COVID numbers are still down for conferences. But if you do have a chance, KCDC is a great event. They have speakers from all over the world. They have, I think, 15 different tracks for the conference. So there's always going to be something that you learn. And whether or not I present at that's been my goal, is to present at KCDC this year. I haven't heard yet, but fingers crossed. Even if I don't present, I will still be there. So if you see me and you are there, come say hi. I've usually got a metal shirt on and my dumb black hat. I actually just trimmed my beard down. It was like way down to here, but I trimmed it up. So if you ever see me or James, especially at an event, come say hi, introduce yourself, follow me on Twitter. I will follow you back. We will engage, through threads or memes or however. But it's a really vital part of the community, and I want to see it continue. So KCDC, June 22nd, 23rd. And the second conference I want to shout out is the View Conference, which is going to be in New Orleans. It's May 24th, 25th, 26th. It's back where it originally was. I've never been to New Orleans. I'm actually kind of scared of me going to New Orleans, especially with the rowdies that are usually at the View Conference. So if you get a chance, spend the money, go to a conference, go by yourself. introduce yourself. The first conference that I ever went to post COVID, I got a speaking gig, and I knew literally no one at the conference. There was no one there that I knew, and I walked away with dozens of people that I now consider friends. So, like I said, you never know where this is going to take you. You just got to be along for the ride. And that's it, man.
Love it. Cool. I'm gonna go super old man today, and I'm gonna pick this like strip backs, or it could be anything. Like it's basically a hard ball, and it has like these kind of ridges in it, and so it's meant to like to roll on, so that you kind of break up your muscles and kind of release the tightness in your muscles. And I've had like the last 4 days has been a ridiculous back time for me, so I've been rolling out like multiple times a day with this to try to help myself out. So it's like $25 on Amazon. This one I think is the Muscle Max massage ball, and I'll include a link in the show notes for people that are interested. But it's been helping me out the last couple of days, especially. And then I'm gonna plug my newsletter. So I don't talk about this that often, although it's something I want to spend more time promoting. And specifically, I announced a new course that'll be on Astro coming out in 4 or 5 months, probably, as I kind of work through it, and super excited about that. The domain I've bought, which is astrocourse.dev, but there's nothing there. So for now, if people are interested in any of my content and specifically announcements for the upcoming Astro course, you can find my newsletter at jamesqquick.com/newsletter.
Yeah, definitely subscribe. He does a great job in getting the information out. So I actually think I get more newsletter emails than I do any other kind of emails.
Yeah.
Because I've like through Twitter, I've signed up for
so many.
all these newsletters, and you know what? I read every single one of them, and I get at least something out of every single one. So,
yep, I sign up for more than I can actually read, but I enjoy seeing them come through from people that I follow on Twitter and stuff.
All right, well, let me ask you this: what's your favorite newsletter that you subscribe to?
I probably would go with Colby Fayock. He's like, I like brag about Colby a ton because his stuff, I don't know, his stuff just always resonates with me. And so he does a good job of like including his content. He also references upcoming content, which I just did for the first time in a while in mine. And he also shares like something personal, like something he's watching or something like that. So it's like a good mix, I think, of like technical tutorial type stuff along with just like stuff that's not tech and could be interesting for people. So he's one that I read almost every time.
Yeah.
You have a favorite one?
I do. There is an author named James Clear that he wrote Atomic Habits, which is a great book.
Yeah.
If anybody's ever wanting to learn about habits and habit forming, buy that book, read it. I read it like seriously every 2 months because I'm ADHD and I can't remember anything. I end up reading it every 2 months. And he has a 3-2-1 newsletter where it's what is it? 3 quotes, 2 stories, and an idea. And it's a really inspirational newsletter. It's a real quick read. It's nothing technical. It's nothing technical, but it is something that I get value out of. Because it just kind of reaffirms. I constantly need reassurance that I'm doing whatever, I'm doing the right thing. I'm making the right decision, all this stuff. A lot of self-doubt, but reading that book and reading those newsletters really help. So check it out.
I love the format of that too. Ankita in the chat reference liking 3-2-1. I like the idea of like each week, you know what you're going to get type thing. That's cool.
Yeah.
Sweet. I think that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks everybody for listening in. If you're on the podcast audio version, make sure to leave a rating and review to help other people find the podcast so we can continue to bring on amazing guests like JD. JD, thanks for joining us. Appreciate having you. Always good to catch up.
No, pleasure's all mine, man. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much. I just wish Amy was here.
I know.
Where's she at?
We missed Amy today. She had a last minute meeting that came up, unfortunately. So yeah.
It is.
Next time. I know. This work thing gets in the way. But
no, I appreciate all you do, and again, your content, your candor, your just willing to hang out with some random dude from Kansas and London. that was amazing. I real quick, James is a squirrel whisperer. If you know, you
Yes.
know.
This, yeah. If you know, you know. If you don't know, ask. And I'll
Yeah.
send you the picture. In the meantime, that's all we got. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Now, thank you.
Cool. I'm gonna end it for everybody that's watching. See you later. Thanks for tuning in, commenting. Appreciate it. See you later.